All right, everyone, welcome back to another deep dive.
Yeah.
You ready to get into some seriously juicy relationship stuff today?
Always ready for that.
Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be unpacking a YouTube video by Dan Bacon called 5 Tips on How to Get a Stubborn Ex Back. Have you heard of Dan Bacon before?
I have, yeah. He's got some interesting takes on dating and relationships.
Yeah, and this video in particular, it's not like your typical win them back with flowers and apologies kind of advice.
Right. It's definitely not the Hallmark Channel approach.
Exactly. We're talking about understanding what he calls attraction triggers and almost playing a bit of emotional chess.
That's a good way to put it.
So this should be fascinating. I'm already kind of hooked.
Me too. So what is it about Bacon's approach that you find so interesting?
Well, one of the first things that stood out to me was how he completely flips the script on what we usually think about getting an ex back.
How so?
He argues that pursuing your ex relentlessly can actually backfire. It can make you seem desperate and unattractive.
So the whole playing hard to get thing actually has some merit.
Yeah, exactly. And he uses this analogy that I thought was really interesting. Imagine a woman begging a man to take her back.
Okay.
It can actually make the man feel more in control. Almost even turn him on in a weird way.
Oh, wow. I can see that. It shifts the power dynamic. But does that work the same way when the roles are reversed?
That's a great question, and that's where it gets interesting. So Bacon says that when a guy gets all desperate and chases after a woman, it usually has the opposite effect.
It makes sense. It can come across as insecure and needy, and those aren't usually qualities that are going to draw someone in.
Exactly. It's all about confidence and self-worth. It's like being the selector, not the one being selected. And this applies getting an ex back, but also to just dating in general, right?
Totally. This principle is fundamental, I think, to maintaining that spark in any romantic relationship. It's about not losing that sense of desire and challenge.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let's say you've stopped chasing. What's next? Do you just sit around hoping she'll come crawling back?
Not quite. Bacon's got us covered there. His second tip is all about using any time apart wisely. He calls it rapidly change and improve while giving her space.
So not just hoping that absence makes the heart grow fonder, but actually leveling up in the meantime. I like it. So what kind of changes does he recommend?
He gives some really concrete examples. He talks about becoming less emotionally sensitive, less selfish, more loving and giving. It's all about genuine inner growth, not just slapping on a new facade.
Right, because I think people can really sense when you're not being authentic. Faking it will probably just backfire in the end.
Definitely. He emphasizes that inner transformation is key. And here's a little caveat to that point. Don't cut contact for too long. He says more than a month or two because she might actually move on.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot between giving her space and staying on her radar.
Okay, walk that tightrope.
Got it.
So you're working on yourself. You're not chasing her. How do you actually reattract her at this point?
That's where Bacon's third tip comes in. Make her want you back by attracting her in new, more interesting ways. You have to evolve, not just rely on the same old strategies that maybe have lost their luster.
Okay, give me the juicy details. How do you become more attractive? Especially when you're trying to win back someone who already knows you?
Well, Bacon talks about 3 powerful examples: emotional independence, ballsy humor, and something he calls emotional masculinity.
All right, unpack those for us. Starting with emotional independence, what exactly does that look like?
So think of it this way. You don't need constant reassurance from her to feel good about yourself. You have your own life. Passions, sense of self-worth, that kind of grounded confidence can be incredibly attractive.
It's like you're saying, I'm good with or without you, which paradoxically makes you more desirable.
Exactly. Now, ballsy humor, that one's a bit more intriguing.
Definitely. Tell me more about that. What makes humor ballsy?
We'll think bolder, more confident, maybe even a little edgy. It's not about being mean-spirited, but it is about pushing boundaries and showing a playful, dominant side.
I love it. It's like you're challenging her a bit, keeping her on her toes.
Yeah. And finally, we have emotional masculinity. This is about being assertive, confident, and leading in the relationship rather than being passive or emotionally needy.
So embodying that classic, strong, masculine energy that a lot of women find naturally attractive. This is fascinating.
It is, isn't it? And what's really interesting is that these principles apply not just to getting an ex back, but to any romantic relationship. They tap into these fundamental dynamics of attraction that are at play in all of our connections.
Already seeing that. Okay, we've covered 3 really powerful tips. What does Dan Bacon have in store for us next?
Well, tip number 4 might seem counterintuitive at first. Bacon calls it, let her feel like she is in control.
Wait, how do you make someone feel in control when you're trying to We'll get them back. This I've got to hear.
Well, it's about understanding that, like, attraction isn't really something you can force. Like, you can't coerce someone into wanting you back, but you can create the conditions for that attraction to kind of reemerge organically.
Okay, so instead of pushing for a relationship, you're letting her come to that conclusion on her own.
Exactly. You're letting her feel like she's making the choice, which can be incredibly empowering and attractive to a woman. Like, it takes the pressure off and allows things to kind of unfold naturally.
So there's a lot of subtlety involved here. It's not just about saying the right words. It's about creating the right vibe.
Right. Precisely. And Bacon cautions against getting, like, overly excited or pushy if she starts showing interest again. Like, that can actually sabotage the whole process, you know? Maintain your composure. Let the attraction build naturally. It's like a dance. You have to be in sync with each other's energy and let the connection guide you.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's about finding that flow, that natural rhythm between you two.
Exactly. Now, are you ready for Bacon's fifth and final tip? This one's about shifting the power dynamic in your favor.
Hit me with it. I'm ready to hear how to turn the tables.
Well, Bacon calls it get her to treat you better. And he points out a common mistake that men make, trying to win their ex back by being extra nice, accommodating, almost bending over backward to please her.
Yeah, I could see how that could backfire.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of reinforcing the idea that you need her approval and putting yourself in a one-down position.
Exactly. And it can create this unhealthy dynamic where you're constantly chasing her validation. He shares an example of a man who follows every rule his ex sets only to find it's never enough. It's like he's constantly jumping through hoops and she's holding all the cards.
So how do you turn this around? How do you command respect and get her to treat you better without being manipulative or playing games?
Well, Bacon suggests using what he calls ballsy humor. It's about using humor in a playful, dominant, but loving way to regain your position of power.
Okay, color me intrigued. Give me an example. I'm dying to know how this plays out in a real-life scenario.
He gives this great example of a guy who sets a 10-minute limit for a meetup with his ex. When the time's up, he jokingly tells her to leave, even though he doesn't actually want her to go.
Wait, seriously? That's bold. I mean, I can see how it would be funny, but also a little risky.
That's the beauty of it. It's playful and assertive at the same time. It shows he's not afraid to set boundaries and that he's not taking himself too seriously.
It challenges her in a way that's not aggressive, but definitely gets her attention.
Exactly. It's about owning your worth and setting a standard for how you expect to be treated.
You know, this concept is so powerful. And I can see how it applies to so much more than just getting an ex back. It's about self-respect and setting healthy boundaries in any relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about those fundamental dynamics of give and take that are essential for any healthy connection. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to touch on one of Bacon's final points that really resonated with me. He emphasizes that the key to transforming a stubborn ex into someone open and receptive is to trigger those feelings of sexual and romantic attraction.
So basically, logic and reasoning go out the window. It's about tapping into those deeper, more primal emotions.
Precisely. You're not going to win her back by over-explaining yourself. Writing lengthy letters, bombarding her with texts, those approaches often backfire and push her further away.
Because they just reek of desperation and neediness, which are major attraction killers.
Exactly. Bacon argues that the most effective approach is to make her feel like she's the one who's missing out.
So you're not chasing her, you're making her chase you.
In a way, yes. It's about making yourself the prize, the one she's afraid of losing. And this isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about genuine self-improvement and becoming the best, most attractive version of yourself.
It's funny how that works, right? The more you focus on yourself and your own growth, the more attractive you become to others.
It's almost like a law of attraction. You radiate confidence and self-assurance, and that naturally draws people in.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground, and I feel like I'm starting to see these relationship dynamics in a whole new light. What are your final takeaways from this deep dive? What really stands out to you?
You know what fascinates me is how these principles, while framed in the context of getting an ex back, are incredibly relevant to any relationship.
Yeah.
Like, they touch on the core dynamics of attraction, connection, and maintaining a healthy balance of power, whether it's with an ex or someone you're just starting to date.
That's so true. It's like we've uncovered this secret code to understanding relationships on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this backstage pass to, like, the inner workings of the human heart.
Totally.
We started with how to get a stubborn ex back, but we've really stumbled upon something much bigger.
Right.
Like a set of principles that apply to, like, literally any romantic connection.
And that's the beauty of these deep dives, you know? We begin with a specific topic,
Yeah.
but often end up exploring like a much wider landscape of, human behavior and relationships.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion,
Mhm.
uncovering all these hidden truths about attraction and connection.
I love that analogy. And I think it's a perfect way to frame our conversation today. We've unpacked some incredibly powerful principles.
Sure.
But there's always more to discover, more layers to peel back.
Always. So to our listener, we want to leave you with this thought-provoking question. If you were to apply just one of these tips to your own W on life, which would it be and why?
Yeah. Which principle resonated with you the most? And how can you start integrating it into your own interactions and relationships?
Maybe it's about owning your worth and setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's about embracing your playful, dominant side with a little ballsy humor.
Right? Whatever it is, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of human connection.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.